Hey everybody, Brian here. Now, it may feel like throughout the lessons on Latin America that we've talked often about Brazil, but we couldn't leave Latin America without going into a little more detail about the big enchilada itself. Though in Brazil, we're better off changing the expression to the big acarajé. Brazil could be summed up with one word: large. The largest landmass in Latin America, the largest population in Latin America, the largest economy in Latin America, the largest rainforest in the world, and we're only getting started. So today, let's start to break down this country which defines the word large by talking through Brazil's land and regions. Location. We've looked at many maps of Latin America before, but just to make sure, Brazil is found to the north and east of the continent of South America, taking up a large part of the continent's Atlantic coast until it runs into the tiny country of Uruguay to the south and the countries of French Guiana, Suriname, and Guyana to the north. To the west, well, it's just easier to let you know the two countries which don't border Brazil, which are Ecuador and Chile. The breakdown. So what does the largest population in Latin America mean in numbers? Well, as of 2021, Brazil had a population just shy of 214 million people. That means half of the entire population of Latin America is Brazilian. Of those, about 123 million claim to be Roman Catholic, or just about two-thirds of the population. A notable difference from the majority of Latin America is that the people of Brazil speak Portuguese. Now, I hear your confusion there. So, by way of explanation, in 1494, Spain and Portugal brokered an agreement about South America, where Portugal received and colonized Brazil. Therefore, unlike the rest of South America, Brazilians speak Portuguese. Brazil is known worldwide for many uniquely Brazilian cultural traits, such as samba, its massive celebration of Carnival, the diverse cuisine, and of course, football or soccer, whichever name for the game you prefer. So, where do all these Catholic, Portuguese-speaking, samba-dancing, Carnival-celebrating, soccer-loving people live? That's a really good question. Let's talk about landforms. Brazil. Landforms. A country as large as Brazil has quite a few features to it, so let's break these down into regions and primary features. First up, the coastal lowlands. Coastal lowlands. Traveling through several regions and extending along almost all of its 4,500-mile western Atlantic coast, the lowlands possess hundreds of miles of sandy beaches, multiple deep and shallow water inlets, and rich, fertile soil as a result of the rivers running from the highlands to the west into the ocean. The Northeast. Looking here at the eastern side of Brazil, seen here in blue on the map, this area was among the first places where Portuguese colonizers landed after being granted this land in that agreement with Spain we talked about earlier. Portugal immediately went to work colonizing the northeast of the country, setting up vast sugarcane plantations and, beginning in the mid-1500s, importing large numbers of African slaves for the next 300 years. As a result, the Northeast has a heavy African influence, as evidenced not just by the people, but by food, such as feijoada, a black bean stew once served to slaves, now become its own cultural landmark food, and the presence of candomblé, which, as we mentioned in a previous lesson, was a mixture of Roman Catholicism and West African religious practice. The inland of the Northeast is called Sertao, which basically translates to scrubland or backcountry, and is a large transition zone between the coastal plain and the central highlands, which we'll cover a little bit later. The Sertao has a tropical wet-dry climate, which you'll recall means that there's a rainy season and a dry season. This means that much of the soil is extremely hard for more than half the year, making the growing of crops relatively difficult, as a growing season for most food products straddle the wet and dry seasons. Additionally, the Northeast is also the most poverty-stricken. Its history as a plantation system, the heavy reliance on African slavery, and the variable climate have created a perfect storm of subsistence farming and a lower life expectancy than the rest of Brazil. The Southeast. The Southeast region, seen on the map in orange, boasts the second smallest percentage of Brazil's overall land at about 11%, while conversely holding over 40% of its total population. In other words, about 80 million people live in this small, heavily populated area. This region of Brazil is humid subtropical, which makes it ideal for the cash crops which are grown here. Most of the inland region sports coffee, cotton, sugarcane, rice, and cacao plantations. While most farming occurs toward the center of the region, a majority of the people live in and around two major coastal cities of Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. As a brief note, this is where the majority of Brazil's migration can be seen, at least before the new capital Brasília was created. Almost 1.5 million people live in Rio de Janeiro's favelas, or haphazard cities built from temporary structures outside the official border of town. That's nearly 24% of the population of the area which migrated to a major city in order to find work, mostly low-paying, and living in these ad hoc communities around the fringes of the city. Why move to overcrowded, haphazard places for work? Well, because there is work. Rio and Sao Paulo are tourist hotspots for people from around the world, not just the food, music, and culture, but for Brazil's celebration of Carnival, the largest and, many Brazilians argue, the best celebration in the world. The South. Seen here in red and bordering Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay, and constituting the smallest region at a little under 7% of Brazil's total land, the South is known as a place where a large number of German and Italian immigrants settled in the 19th century, creating many small but profitable farms and ranches. This highly urbanized area is also a tourist draw, as the mostly temperate climate and European influence make for an enticing destination. As well as agriculture, the South is known for its sheep and cattle ranching, with 12% of Brazil's cattle production and a staggering 99% of wool production coming from this small area. Brazilian Highlands. Called the Central West on the map and seen here in yellow, this region stretches from the Sertao in the northeast and runs the northern border of the southwest. The Brazilian Highlands are also called the Planalto Central and are a region full of rugged escarpments, high plateaus, ravines, and rocky outcrops. Altogether, this geographic feature covers 1.7 million square miles of Brazil's eastern, southern, and central portions, or about half of the country's total area. In one of our introductory lessons covering South American economics, we mentioned Brazil's production of copper, iron ore, and other minerals. Almost all of that mined wealth comes from this region. Additionally, the forward capital of Brasília is located in this region. As you'll recall, a forward capital is built specifically to bring economic opportunity to an underserved area. The North, or Amazonia. The largest area of Brazil, seen on the map in green, contains about 60% of the total area of the Amazon River basin. This region of Brazil remains only partially explored to this day for a couple of pretty good reasons. The first reason is logistics. Some parts of the Amazon River basin may have never been visited by humanity at all due to the impenetrable jungle and multiple hazards, including but not limited to wild animals and also wild microbes or disease which may have developed away from humanity, thus leaving no immunity for unfortunate travelers to rely upon. The other reason, which has been pushed by both multinational organizations and by a part of the Brazilian government itself, is the goal to leave uncontacted Amazonian tribes alone. As we covered in our earlier economics lesson, the recent desire for Brazil's government to ease restrictions in the Amazon for commercial development has reawakened old concerns that the people living in the Amazon will soon run into the modern world, and the consequences of those interactions have not gone well in the past. So why is this important? Well, there were an estimated 2 million people living in the Amazon when the Portuguese arrived, and the disease interaction killed nearly all of them. This kind of biological warfare still occurs today. Anytime a road is built or forest is cleared, the risk of disease for Amazonian tribes is ever present. Conclusion. The largest country in Latin America could easily be broken into many, many more subdivisions, but this should give you some idea of the size and differences in each of these major areas. As with all countries in Latin America, Brazil, after independence from Europe, is striving to make itself better than it was before, looking toward growth and opportunity for Brazilians. In another lesson, we'll discuss the special challenges which come with growth. Until next time, keep exploring.
Hey, hey.